Round 21 is coming up this weekend, and there are some massive games that will shape how the final eight will end up playing out. We're going to go through all 9 matches coming your way this weekend. This is the All Aussie Rules Football Podcast. Sit back and enjoy. Welcome on into another episode of the All Aussie Rules Football Podcast. This one is episode number 53 for season 2025. And today we're taking a look at round 21. We're going to be previewing all 9 matches coming your way this weekend in the AFL. We'll have a look at who we think's going to win. We'll have a look at some of the stats behind all the games, all the key information you need to know heading into this weekend of football. And then we'll wrap up this episode at the end with our tips for the weekend. As always, we do 2 episodes every single week. This is our preview episode on Monday. The review episode goes live. That goes live on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts every single day. So no matter what platform you are on, don't forget to like, don't forget to comment, don't forget to follow or subscribe, and all of that sort of stuff. Also, check out the YouTube channel. There's plenty of videos go live every single week, including a run home video that went live just the other day, yesterday or 2 days ago, depending when you're watching this. So go check that out. It gives you all the information you need to know about your favourite team heading into September, provided your favourite team is currently in the top 9. Let's jump into the football, though. That's what you're here for. Round 21. Let's jump into it. Thursday night football. For once, for the first time in what feels like forever, we've got 3 good games this weekend. Thursday night footy is great. Friday night footy is great. Saturday night footy is great. 3 great nights of football in a row. Primetime footy this weekend. It is all about primetime footy. And we kick it off on Thursday night. Melbourne. Where did I get that? Bulldogs at hosting GWS at Marvel Stadium. I've lost the plot already, and we're only 2 minutes into the episode. Bulldogs, GWS, Marvel Stadium. Massive game. A lot on the line in this one. Bulldogs will be hosting, so you've got to think they're a decent chance in this one. They need to win. They lose this, they're falling out of touch with the top 8, and maybe, just maybe, they won't be able to catch that back up. They will be starting reasonably shortish favourites in this game, which is interesting based on recent records, but it is in Melbourne, so you understand why they are favourites, but I think they're a bit shorter than maybe they should be. If you're watching this video instead of just listening, there is a graphic up right now. If you're listening, you can't see it, but we'll walk through it anyway. Just a little description about it. All Aussie Rules rating is a thing that I've been working on over the last few months to give us a rating for each team going into games. I've always done the ratings post-game. This is now incorporating it into pre-game with the hope that we'll keep touching it up, keep fine-tuning it a little bit more, but hopefully give us a pretty good idea of who's going to win and the margin. So, GWS, a plus 4.04 for the year. Bulldogs, plus 3.13. This takes into account home ground, recent form on the season, and also record against similar ranked teams. So, that's where we're at. GWS actually rate higher, even though this is in Melbourne. They have played pretty good on the road this year. Their record on the road is basically the same as at home over the recent few seasons, so I don't think that's going to be the issue. Bulldogs at Marvel are pretty good usually, though, so that might be interesting. Those ratings gives us a predicted winner of GWS by 4 points. 4 points, you got to think that there's at least a kick either way, that room for difference. So I guess really a close game is probably what we're expecting here. I'd be very surprised to see either team dominate it. But then again, strange things happen. Look at what happened last Friday night when GWS took on Sydney. Looking at teams have actually been announced for this one at time of recording. I record this on Wednesday night, just for those interested. 3 changes for the Giants, none for the Bulldogs. So the Giants have Lee Kalia, Harvey Thomas, and Harry Rouston coming in, going out at Jack Buckley, Josh Kelly, and Toby Green. 3 massive outs. You've got to say 3 lower ranked ins, in all honesty. That does probably hurt Giants' chances a little bit. The ratings say Giants. We'll get to my tips later. Just an FYI, they won't necessarily match up. Recent form of both teams, Bulldogs obviously hosting this. They're 9th on the ladder, 11-8. As we said, they need to win this. They lose this, they're really going to struggle to play finals football. Whereas Giants sitting 6th, they get this win. Top 4 is well on the cards. If they lose this, all of a sudden, they're right in that danger zone to miss finals. Recent form, 3 and 2 for the Bulldogs. Those 2 losses might be what cost them in the end. They lost to 2 top-ranked teams, 2nd and 3rd on the current ladder in Adelaide and Brisbane. But they just could be costly, especially the one against Adelaide, which was also in Melbourne. So, historically, they're not too bad. They're pretty good at Marvel, but that was a bad performance, that one. Their 3 wins over recent weeks have not been great opposition. Sydney's an okay one up in Sydney. That was a pretty good win, in all honesty. But then North and Essendon, they've smacked them, but it's not the highest quality of opposition. Meanwhile, GWS have not lost in quite a while. It feels like forever since they have lost a game. Their form has been absolutely outstanding. And you look across the last 5 weeks, they've beat some quality opposition in there. They beat Gold Coast 5 weeks ago. West Coast, obviously, a low-ranked team. But then they beat Geelong in a really good performance. And then the last 2 weeks, Essendon and Sydney. So, not too dissimilar of a run in terms of who they're playing to the Bulldogs. But unlike the Bulldogs, they keep winning. Whereas Western Bulldogs have those couple drops to top-ranked teams, which GWS do not have. They looked like losing last week against Sydney, but they absolutely turned it around after halftime, and it ended up absolutely smacking them. So, right off this GWS team at your own peril. They finished really strong through the home and away season last year. They look like doing that again this year. And the big 4 weeks coming up for them, and if they get this win, it will be huge for their season. Looking at the history of this matchup, the Bulldogs actually have a very, very good record against the Giants. 8 and 2 across the last 10. Round 2023 was the last time the Giants beat the Bulldogs. The time before that was the 2019 elimination final. So, overall, Bulldogs head-to-head record's really good. It is at Marvel Stadium. A lot of things suggesting that the Doggies get up in this one. All the players out. There's a lot going against the Giants, but I just putting that cautionary tale in. Do not write the Giants off, because they're a team that sometimes the numbers don't read well for them, but they just do the job and get it done. So I wouldn't be surprised to see that happen again. Their big issue is obviously Jack Buckley out, and they've got to find a way to stop these tall forwards. Absolute dynamic duo in the forward line, Sam Darcy and Aaron Norton. They've combined for 83 goals this season. Absolutely dominating, those two. I think, what did they kick last weekend? 13 goals between the two. They're absolutely flying. They're in great form. Their midfield's dominating as well, getting the ball forward. But those tall forwards are going to be their issue for the Giants, I think. No Jack Buckley. There's going to be a lot of pressure in this game on Lee Collier, who's coming back into the team. And yeah, and Sam Taylor, obviously. So it will be interesting to see how that plays out in this one. I certainly wouldn't be writing the Giants off, but it's going to be a really tough game for them to get up. I'm absolutely not going either way, though, with this one. Right now, we'll do my tips at the end of the episode and go further into it, but that's going to be their issue. Up the other end, Giants' forward line's obviously really good and been in some really good form as well of late, so I think that will be a good battle as well up the other end. Move into the next game on the weekend. It's Friday night football, and this is another cracker. Another 2 teams that have genuine finals chances going up against each other. Adelaide hosting Hawthorn. Adelaide will be pretty dominant favourites. No surprise there. They're in absolutely outstanding form, coming off a 98-point win over Port Adelaide in the pouring rain. Hawthorn, their form isn't too bad. It's certainly got going of late, but this will be a tough one. They win this, you can lock them into finals. If they drop this one, all of a sudden they're right there in the scrappy zone where either Giants or Bulldogs will be after this week. What else do we need to go through here? We'll go all Aussie ratings, all Aussie rules ratings for this match. As you can see, Adelaide are 6.86. I think Hawthorn are actually meant to be a positive 2.87, so please ignore that number. I believe that is a typo. Let me just double check. Yeah, definitely a typo. So Hawthorn are actually a positive 2.87 for this game, but that's still 4 points off that of the Crows. That gives the Adelaide Crows the predicted winner in the rating system, rating model, by 19 points in this game, which I think is a fair and reasonable adjudication, in all honesty, based on what we've seen from these two teams. Last 5 weeks, both teams in super form. Adelaide, over the last 5 weeks, have won 5 games. They've scored over 100 in 4 of those 5, and the other game was a 90-point score from them. Granted, most of the wins have not been against great opposition. They smacked Richmond, they smacked Melbourne, and they've smacked Port Adelaide in that period. There were 2 really good wins, though. The win in Melbourne against the Bulldogs and the win at home 2 weeks ago against Gold Coast Suns, who were coming off a fantastic win, and the week later also got another massive win over Brisbane. So their form absolutely stands up right now, the Adelaide Crows. They're 14-5, they're second on the ladder. They have a genuine chance to get this minor premiership with their run home. They win this one and they win 2 weeks later against Collingwood at home. All of a sudden, minor premiership will be going the way of the Crows. On the other side of the fence, Hawthorn 13-6, sorry. Only the 1 game behind Adelaide, which is pretty solid. Like only 1 game off second on the ladder, as well as a lot of percentage, to be honest. But they win this, they're all of a sudden top 4 is well and truly on. They lose this. There's a lot of people predicting that Hawthorn are going to be the team that misses finals. I am not so certain of that. I think they should probably make finals. They've got a tough run home, no doubt about it. But I think I wouldn't be writing them off in this game. There's no way I'm writing them off here. Their last 5 weeks, 4-1. The one loss was over in the West against Fremantle, so never an easy road trip, that one, against a team that's playing some really good football. The other 4 weeks, they haven't beaten anyone, let's be honest. They've beaten North Melbourne, absolutely smoked them. They beat St Kilda, they beat Port Adelaide, and they beat Carlton. So their 4 wins over the last 5 weeks have not been great quality opposition, but we'll find out a lot about Hawthorn over the final 4 weeks, because they've got Adelaide, they've got Collingwood, they've got Brisbane. So 3 top teams to come in their final 4 rounds. If they make finals, you know that they've played some really good opposition late in this season and done really well. That's basically the long and the short of where Hawthorn are at. A look at this match, this head-to-head match, I guess. Hawthorn have a pretty solid record against Adelaide. Over recent seasons, both teams have not been fantastic. However, this year and last year for Hawthorn, they have been. Earlier this year they played, it was down in Tassie, it was a very cold Friday night game, and the Hawks got up by 3 points in a low-scoring affair. The two matchups last year, Hawthorn also won both of those. They're 7-3 Hawthorn over the last 10 matchups, so they do have a really, really good record head-to-head against the Crows. That might help them in this one. I wouldn't say it guarantees them a win by any stretch of the imagination, but it certainly gives them a show. Adelaide, though, as we saw, I've seen many times this year, are a much different team than previous seasons. Their offense is absolutely flying. Their defense is getting better and better every single week in terms of numbers. The numbers are just getting better and better for them. So this is turning into a a team that looks very, very dangerous. They're the highest rated team in the All Aussie Rules rating system right now. And they don't have a lot of issues. Certainly not with injuries or like major injuries or anything like that. They're just kind of flowing. They're getting the job done week in, week out. And is that the ideal situation? Sometimes you want to drop a game here and there just to keep you switched on, but they're certainly flying at the moment. And this will be a really tough game for Hawthorn. I think that's basically the long and the short of it. Midfield battle will be interesting, how that shapes up. I think Adelaide's midfield's probably better than Hawthorn's midfield. Adelaide's forward line is probably better than Hawthorn's forward line, but Hawthorn's backline is probably better than Adelaide's backline. So it's just going to be fascinating how this matchup transpires, I guess. What the weather does on Friday night in Adelaide as well might have a key role in how this match ends up playing. Hawthorn, if they can get their run and dash and over the back style play, they'll be really competitive here, but the issue for them is going to be stopping the opposition from scoring. We all know how good Adelaide are at getting scores on the board. There's only been a couple games where they haven't scored well this year, and all of them, their opposition has also not scored well. So I'd be very surprised to see Adelaide not kick 13 plus goals in this game. And if they get to 13 plus goals, Hawthorn are going to have a very, very difficult time keeping up with them, in my opinion. That's Friday night football. We'll jump into Saturday football. We head to Marvel Stadium Saturday afternoon for the early game, and it's Melbourne West Coast. Let me just change my graphic because apparently I forgot to do that. Melbourne West Coast, Marvel Stadium. This is not the game of the round. Melbourne will be very, very short price favourites, even though they absolutely threw the game away last weekend. Surely we don't see that happen again this weekend. They'll be short priced. There's no doubt about that. West Coast having a terrible season. Yeah, there's not much else to say about it. Match ratings here. Melbourne actually have a slightly positive rating, plus 0.15. West Coast have a negative 8.97. Clearly, by a long way, the lowest ranked team in the AFL right now. They've only won one game this season. No surprise there. The model gives Melbourne a 43-point win under the rating system, so we'll see how that plays out. Looking at the record of both teams, Melbourne 13th on the ladder, 6 wins, 13 losses. West Coast 18th on the ladder, 1 win, 18 losses. The record over the last 5 weeks for both teams reads really, really, really bad. Melbourne 1-4, West Coast 0-5. Melbourne could have won last week, but they threw that game away after being 46 points up in the final change. Their only win was against North Melbourne 3 weeks ago. They've also lost to, as we said, St Kilda, Carlton, so 2 low-ranked teams, as well as 2 high-ranked teams in Adelaide and Gold Coast. West Coast, their season has been really poor, there's no doubt about it. Their last 5 weeks have seen them lose to 3 top teams in Collingwood, GWS and Fremantle. It's also seen them lose to 2 very low-ranked teams, Port Adelaide and Richmond. 49-point loss to Richmond at home was really, really bad for the Eagles. There's probably not too much to go through on this game, in all honesty. It's not the most exciting matchup of the weekend. West Coast just rate really poorly. Melbourne probably rate better than most people think they do this season. They've had a weird sort of year where they've played some really good games of football and also some really, really bad games of football. Their head-to-head record is actually 5-5 over the last 10. However, Melbourne have won 5 of the last 6, dating back to round 21, 2021. So it's kind of going all the way of Melbourne, which isn't a surprise. Melbourne have been a much better team over the last 5 years than the West Coast Eagles, so you'd expect that kind of. But you look along the stat categories here, and Melbourne pretty much outrank West Coast in every major stat category there is. It's very hard to see a world where West Coast can be competitive across 4 quarters and win this game of football against Melbourne. I know, obviously, Melbourne coming off last weekend is an interesting one, how that plays out, but it's just a world where I don't see that happening. I really don't. So that's pretty much everything we have to go on in this game. Melbourne's midfield should be way too strong, I think, and get them across the line. West Coast, I think, will really struggle to stop Pickett. He'll probably have 23 touches and 5 goals. Max Gawn will dominate in the ruck. He'll probably have 50 hitouts with 20 of those to advantage. It's just a game where Melbourne should absolutely take West Coast to the cleaners. We move on to the next game of football on the weekend. There's 2 games on at the early evening time on Saturday, and this is the first of them. Gold Coast Richmond, another game that's probably not really highly touted. Let's be honest, Gold Coast will be very short-priced favourites, even though they lost to Richmond earlier this year down at Marvel Stadium. This one is at People First Stadium on the Gold Coast. Gold Coast will clearly be favourites. There's no way that won't be the case. They'll be very, very short-priced favourites, and obvious reasons. The All Aussie rules rating system has Gold Coast as a plus 2.8 for this game, Richmond a minus 6.9. Gives Gold Coast a predicted winner by 45 points, so pretty similar margin to the previous game. Gold Coast absolutely flying. On the most part, you take out one game a couple of weeks ago, and they are absolutely flying. Richmond are absolutely outperforming where most people had them this season, and their last probably 3 weeks have been just about their best 3-week patch of the season. Gold Coast 12 and 6, 8th on the ladder, playing one less game than everyone else around them on the ladder. So they win this one, which you'd imagine they will. Gives them a really good opportunity to run home and potentially still get a top 4 spot, which would be crazy. They've never played finals before. This year they certainly will be. With the run home that they've got, they have every chance to still make top 4, in my opinion. They've had a really, really good 5 weeks. You go back 5 weeks ago, they beat Melbourne and Essendon. Those 2 games, obviously not against high-ranked teams. But since then, they beat Collingwood in a first half absolute domination. They did get smacked by Adelaide, so that was a bit disappointing down in Adelaide. But followed that up last week against Brisbane, their crosstown rivals. Not quite the same town, but same state. And absolutely smoked them from pillar to post. An outstanding performance. So they're in great form, 4-1 over 5 weeks. That should be another win for them this weekend. Richmond got smacked, in all honesty, by Adelaide and Geelong, 2 top-ranked teams. Followed that up with a gritty win against Essendon, and then a really good performance over in the West against West Coast, beating them. And then last week, pretty solid throughout most of the game against Collingwood. Just a little bit off the class, I guess, in the end. But a really good 5-week stretch, 2-3 for them. It's hard to see them winning more than one more game this year. This won't be a win for them. This will be just about as tough a game as they're probably going to play this year. Potentially a really big win for the Gold Coast Suns, but the way the Tigers are playing, you can't completely write them off from being a competitive team in this game. Their players just keep showing up and putting in effort all the way through the games, which has been a really positive sign for the Tigers this year. Head-to-head record is actually 5-5 for both teams. Gold Coast had won 5 in a row, though, up until the game earlier this year when Richmond beat them by 11 points at Marvel Stadium. So everything suggests Gold Coast. I mean, our brains say Gold Coast. It's hard to find a stat or an area of the ground where Richmond are going to be able to win this game. I certainly can't see any areas that they're going to be outstanding in. Compared to Gold Coast, who are playing just really good, solid football across the ground. Their game style's really working at the moment, and they're going to be hard to beat in this run home to finals. Also at that early evening time slot is Sydney v Essendon up at the SCG. Another game where we'll have a very, very short-priced favourite. Sydney looking like the dominant team in this game. The All Aussie Rules rating system suggests very similar, plus 0.72 for the Swans for the season, or their rating for this game, sorry. The Bombers are minus 4.49 and dropping each week at the moment because, I mean, no surprise. They're just really struggling for troops out there as it currently stands. So that's basically where it is. Sydney predicted winner by 24 points. No real surprise there, I don't think. Record for the season, Sydney 9-10. The loss last week effectively ended their season. At halftime, it looked like it was going to continue on. They were flying against the Giants, but fell apart after that. Their last 3 wins before that were pretty solid, beating Nth Melbourne, beating St Kilda and Fremantle. The Fremantle one was a really, really strong win. But they've just had too many losses throughout this year, and it's caught up to them. They left too much work to do too late, and that's where it's at. Those couple early games in the season where they lost some close ones and had some genuine chances of winning games of football is what's going to cost them in the end. Even an extra 2 wins right now, and they would still be not a great chance, but a solid enough chance to play finals. But that's just how it is. The Bombers, it's been a while since they've won a game of football. They're 6-12 for the season. Their last 5 weeks have not been fantastic. They lost some okay performances against some top teams, against Freo and Gold Coast, but since then it's fallen apart. They got beaten by Richmond in a really disappointing game, and then got smacked by GWS and then the Bulldogs. So it's not been a great period of time for the Bombers. No real surprises. They've got plenty of excuses, but it's at the end of the day, they're losing games of football, and that's going to probably continue throughout the rest of 2025. Head-to-head record, Bombers not terrible here. Sydney are up 6-4 over the last 10 meetings. They met earlier this year, and the Bombers actually beat the Swans. That was in Melbourne at Marvel Stadium. So, that's the key. That matchup there is one of the key ones that just point a hole in why Sydney are not playing finals this year. They lost to Bombers earlier this year by 8 points. Before that, Sydney had won 6 of the previous 7. So a pretty solid little stretch Sydney had over the Bombers. And you'd imagine that will bounce back in this one to being another win for Sydney. You look across the ground, the Bombers forward line really, really struggling. They're very young. They've been young all season, let's be honest, but they're really struggling to fill the holes of some injured players in Langford, but also like losing players at the end of last season, like Stringer. So that's been a big issue for them. Sydney's offense has also been a weakness for them, but nowhere near as bad as the weakness of the Bombers. Sydney's defence has been really strong, actually has a positive rating, which gives them the positive rating in this game. Their defence has been strong. Essendon's defence is certainly better than their offence, but it's still quite low comparatively speaking to the Swans. This should be a game where Sydney just are too strong. I think stopping Heaney, Goulden and Warner will be a really big challenge in this game, and obviously Sydney's best player probably over the last 12 to 15 weeks is Brodie Grundy. He's been in some sensational form, and I would expect that we will see that happen again here in this game. He's been really, really good this season. I currently have him as the 3rd highest ranked ruckman in the competition this season. I don't think he's going to be able to catch number 1, but he is playing some really, really good football, so I wouldn't write it off. He might still have a chance to be in the All Aussie Rules All-Australian team at the end of the season. That's pretty much everything we have for that game. We move to Saturday night football, and this is a big one. A very important game for both teams based on what we have coming up for both teams in the run home. It's Collingwood, Brisbane, the standalone Saturday night fixture. It's at the MCG. This is huge. The All Aussie Rules rating system has Collingwood as a plus 4.18. Brisbane as a plus 2.77. They've been really good on the road this year. And because of that reason, I think they're a genuine chance to cause the upset here. Rating system has Collingwood winning this by 7 points. Collingwood will start favourites. This is, so far up to this point, the closest game in the markets so far this round, and probably rightly so. It should be a cracking game. Collingwood sitting first on the ladder, 15 wins, 4 losses. Brisbane third on the ladder, 13 wins, 1 draw, 5 losses. Collingwood have a big run over the next 3 weeks. They're sitting first on the ladder. It's now looking more and more likely that they won't win the minor premiership just based on what they have to come. There's some big games coming up, though. They've got Brisbane, Hawthorn, then Adelaide. They win all 3 of them, they win the minor premiership and all things rosy, but it's a really tough little stretch. It's kind of like a mini final series before the final series. With obviously less on the line because you're not eliminated if you lose, but it's just like 3 weeks of really tough opposition, and it will play out to be an interesting little stretch for them, I think. Brisbane also have a pretty tough run home. They've got Collingwood, they've got Hawthorn. I can't think of the other 2 that they've got, but yeah, it's going to be a lot to play for both of these teams this weekend and the next couple of weeks. Collingwood's last 5 weeks, 3-2. They obviously had those 2 losses in a row, 6 points to Gold Coast, 1 point to Fremantle. Their 3 wins have not been against great opposition, West Coast, Carlton and Richmond. So 3 low-ranked teams there are their 3 wins. On the other side of the fence, Brisbane, 4-1 over their last 5 weeks. They were going really well. Beat Geelong, beat Port Adelaide, Carlton and the Bulldogs. And then followed it up last week with an absolute stinker performance against Gold Coast. We write that one off, we forget about it, and we expect that the Brisbane Lions will completely bounce back this weekend. Is basically how I see it. I can't see a world where they play that poorly 2 weeks in a row. They've got a lot to play for. These 2 teams did meet earlier in this year up at the Gabba. Brisbane were off a 5-day break, lost it by 52 points. They'll want revenge for that. They'll want revenge for what happened last week to them against Gold Coast. They're going to come out firing, I think, and this will be a very interesting matchup. Head-to-head, Brisbane were going really well in the head-to-head matchup, had won 6 in a row up until going into the 2023 Grand Final, but Collingwood got the win by 4 points in that one, and since then have won the next 3, so won their last 4 in the head-to-head matchups. Obviously beat them by 52 points earlier this year. The 2 matchups last year, pretty close games. Collingwood won the first one by 20 at the Gabba, and then won the second one by a point, which was at the MCG in a thrilling come-from-behind victory by the Pies. Stats suggest it's probably going to be a pretty close game across the field. Both midfields playing really good football. McCluggage, Neal, the Ashcroft brothers, Josh Dunkley, all in great form for Brisbane. Collingwood's midfield, led by Nick Dacos, is really good. They probably use the outside run a little bit better than Brisbane. Jack Crisp playing some great football. Darcy Cameron's going to be a big key contributor for Collingwood, I think, if they are to win. And that run off the back line is probably Collingwood's greater strength over Brisbane in this head-to-head matchup. I think they have some really good quality players and ball users back there, which might be the difference in this matchup. Who knows? There's not too much else to say about this game. It should be a cracker. It could go absolutely either way. The model says 7 points. I wouldn't be expecting it to be a blowout either way. I think it will probably go right down to the final quarter, the final few minutes, and one way or another, it's going to be an interesting result, I think. Moving on to Sunday football. There's 3 games on Sunday this weekend. We kick off with St Kilda, North Melbourne. This will be at Marvel Stadium. The early kickoff, 1:40 kickoff. St Kilda will be short-priced favourite. Obviously, they're playing a lot better football than North, who are really struggling at the moment. The rating system has St Kilda at a minus 1.31, North Melbourne a minus 5.74. That gives St Kilda the predicted win by 21 points. What to say about this game other than watch it just to watch Nashaya Wanganeen-Malira? Hopefully he plays again and plays another cracker. Both teams struggling for form. St Kilda are 6-13 on the year. North Melbourne 4.5 wins on the season with 14 losses. Both between these 2 teams over the last 5 weeks, they're a collective 1-9. That one win was St Kilda last week over Melbourne when they came from behind from 46 points back at three-quarter time and absolutely turned it on to kick 2 goals in the final 20 seconds to win the game by 6. Their form isn't terrible. Like, they played pretty solid against Geelong 2 weeks back. They only lost by 5 points to Sydney, 20 points to Hawthorn, 12 points to Freo in Freo. So their form is actually pretty solid when you look at it. But overall, they've only won 6 games of football this season, and 3 of them were in like the first month or so of football. So it's been a long season for them since that point. North Melbourne, they've really crumbled over the last 5 weeks. There's been some tough matchups there. They've played some really good opposition. Hawthorn, Bulldogs and Geelong all took them to the cleaners. But Melbourne also smacked them. And Sydney beat them quite convincingly 2 weeks ago as well. So it's been a long, rough season for North Melbourne again this year. And it's just hard to see on paper how they genuinely match up against a team that played pretty good football last weekend. Or at least for one quarter they did. Head-to-head matchup, St Kilda have the record of 6-4 over the last 10, including winning the last 5. So last time North Melbourne beat St Kilda was round 1, 2020, so right before the COVID lockout. They won it by 2 points. Across the board, St Kilda probably have the better numbers. Attacking-wise, they certainly are better. Defensive-wise, North Melbourne really are struggling defensively, and that's going to be their biggest issue. Like, you kind of forgive them when they go up against a forward line of, like, Sam Darcy and Aaron Norton, like they did a few weeks back, or last week when it's Jeremy Cameron, but they just really struggle to keep teams from scoring, especially lately. 4 of the last 5 weeks, they've conceded 119 or more, twice 150. It's just been a lot of offense from opposition, and they just don't have the ability right now to stop teams from scoring, and I think that's going to be their biggest issue here. St Kilda not a massive scorer, but pretty much every team is scoring really well against them, so I would imagine that's probably what's going to bring them undone in this game as well. How does North win this? I don't know, to be honest. They probably will have a fair bit of the football. Whether they have more than St Kilda or not, I don't know. They certainly might be in the battle in clearance numbers. I doubt they'll beat them in contested football, though. If North's big hope every week, I think, is just about their scoring from centre bounce, because they get quite a few goals from the centre bounce. It's never enough, though, to win games of football, because they're just not getting enough scores from other sources. So if they can get the centre bounce clearances going their way and they can get some goals from that, then sure, maybe there'll be a chance. But it's a really, really tough ask for them. I know St Kilda aren't playing great football, but we just haven't seen much from North Melbourne for the last 7-8 weeks since they played Carlton, in all honesty. We just haven't seen much from them, and maybe we won't again this year. Who knows? Maybe we will. I guess we'll find out. Moving on to the second last game of the round, we're heading to GMHBA Stadium in Geelong for the Cats v Power. This probably, when it was scheduled, was billed as a big game. It's certainly not going to play out that way now. Based on what happened last year between these two teams in Geelong, the All Aussie Rules rating system plus 4.42 for the Cats. For the Power, it's a minus 4.05. That gives Geelong an expected win by 40 points. They're absolutely flying at the moment, and it would be very, very surprising to see them lose this game to the Power, who are certainly not playing great football at the moment. Geelong 13-6, fourth on the ladder. With the run home that they have, you'd expect that they're definitely going to finish top 4. They may finish top 2, and it's not out of the realms of possibility to finish minor premiers, but it will be rely on some results going their way elsewhere. Port Adelaide, they're 8 wins, 11 losses. Their season is officially done. They cannot play finals, and this is where they're at now. You look at the recent form of the Cats, they're winning enough games. They've won 3 out of their last 5. They've won their last 2. They have played some really good teams in that run. The 2 teams that they lost to were the good teams. They lost to Brisbane, they lost to GWS. Their wins have been Richmond, St Kilda, Kangaroos. But those 3 wins were all pretty dominant wins. And in all honesty, they don't have much opposition coming up in the remaining 4 weeks. They've got Port Adelaide here. I think they've got Sydney in Sydney, which might be a tough one, but the other 2 certainly not tough matchups. So I would be very surprised to see them not get to 16 wins this season. Potentially they'll get to 17. Port Adelaide, they've gone 2-3 over the last 5 weeks. Their wins against Carlton and West Coast, so not great quality there. Their losses all against finals-bound teams in Brisbane, Hawthorn and Adelaide. I know Hawthorn and, technically Brisbane, aren't guaranteed finals yet, but you'd imagine they're probably pretty likely to be there. Certainly they're going to be top 9 teams. So their 3 losses have been against good teams, but what transpired last week was really, really disappointing for them. They lost by 98 points in the pouring rain to the Crows. Just not good enough for them, and that basically sums up, I think, where they're at the moment. They're just a little bit off the pace, and a little bit off the pace can equate to big margins sometimes. They've had some absolute floggings at hands of oppositions this year. You look at their record across the year, and they've just had way too many games where they are getting absolutely flogged. And that's just where they are. They've fallen off. Like a 91-point loss to Collingwood. They've also had a 90-point loss to the Bulldogs. They've had this 98-point loss to Adelaide last week, a 76-point loss to Geelong. So they've had 4 losses this year by in excess of 70 points and 3 in excess of 90 points. And there's still 4 weeks to go. I don't think they lose any of them by 90 plus, but actually this one could be one. So let's not talk too soon, I guess. We'll see how that plays out. Looking at the numbers, the head-to-head record are 6-4 in favour of Geelong. Geelong have won the last 2. Port Adelaide did beat Geelong in round 9 last year, though. If you think back to that, it was a cracking game. It went right down to the wire. Port Adelaide kicked away early. Geelong fought their way back into it, but didn't quite catch them. So it shapes up, like on paper, as a pretty good matchup head-to-head wise, but the last 2 times they have met, Geelong have smoked them 138-54 in the qualifying final in Adelaide last year, and then earlier this year, also in Adelaide, Geelong won 115-39. So most things shaping up as a Geelong victory here, and probably a pretty comfortable Geelong victory, in all honesty. Their offense is absolutely flying. Geelong's defense is solid. It's nothing outstanding, but their offense is absolutely flying. Port Adelaide, their offense is absolutely horrid. Their defense is okay, not great, certainly worse than Geelong's defense. It's just a hard way to see a way that Port Adelaide can genuinely compete on an even level in this game, based on what we've seen over recent weeks. We've got one final matchup for you. It's starting at 3:10 local time over in WA, Optus Stadium, Fremantle, Carlton. Another one-sided affair, you'd think. The rating system doesn't suggest it's going to be as dominant as maybe we think it will be. Plus 0.99 for Fremantle, minus 3.81 for the Blues. Gives Fremantle an expected win by 23 points. They have a lot riding on this game, and they have a lot riding on the rest of their season, though. Genuine chance to still make top 4 if they get a bit of luck involved. They need to keep winning games of football, and this is where it starts. They're 13-6 on the season, they're 7th on the ladder. They're 4-1 over the last 5 weeks. I think they're 8 of 9 over the last 9 weeks. They're really flying. They're playing some really good football. In that period, they have beat Collingwood in Melbourne. They beat Hawthorn 3 weeks ago. Their one loss was to Sydney in Sydney, so that's not a bad loss. Their form is really, really good. They're playing some really solid football, and I'd be very surprised to see them lose this one. Carlton, they're 12th on the ladder, 7-12. 1 win, 4 losses over the last 5 weeks. That 1 win was against Melbourne. They've lost to Hawthorn, Brisbane, Collingwood, so 3 finals teams there, and they also lost by 50 points to Port Adelaide, who we were just talking about how bad a form they're in at the moment. So, yeah, a lot of things suggest that Fremantle win this. It's hard to see a world where they don't. Head-to-head record between the two teams actually goes the way of the Blues over the last 10, 7-3. And actually won 7 of the last 8 have the Blues. The only win since 2018 for Fremantle was 2022 in round 6. So Fremantle do not play Carlton well. The saving grace for them here is Carlton are not playing great football right now. So if they are ever going to beat them, this would be the one. Offensively, Fremantle way ahead of Carlton. Carlton's offense has been quite putrid this season, whereas Carlton's defense actually stands up pretty well, but Fremantle's defense is also pretty solid. I think the difference in this game is going to be Carlton will probably find it very difficult to score on Fremantle, whereas Fremantle's offense, Carlton's defense is probably pretty evenly matched, which will just allow them to score more than the offense of Carlton, who are just really, really struggling to kick a winning score right now. You look at their numbers over the last 5 games. Their best score in that 5-week period is 78, and they've had the other 4 have all been 66 or less. 60, 59, 66, 78, 61 are their last 5 games. They're just not scoring, and it's hard to see a world where they will score enough against Fremantle. I don't expect Fremantle to come out and kick 120 points like they did last week. I'd expect Fremantle probably finish 85, 90-ish on the scoreboard. Carlton probably finish 50 to 60 at best, I reckon, is probably where this game's at on paper. That's all 9 games. We'll jump into our footy tips in just a second. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. All of those things, follow along. Hit the noti bell so you don't miss any videos. Go check out our social medias. All Aussie Rules everywhere. We've got content every single day on social media. TikToks after every match. We do 2 podcasts a week. We do other YouTube videos, especially like season previews. We'll be doing season reviews on every team. We'll be doing individual match previews throughout final series. We'll have AFLW content coming your way when that season kicks off in a couple weeks. So make sure you follow along. Go check out all the socials. There's plenty of content. Let's jump into our footy tips for this weekend. They do not match up with what the rating system comes up with. This is just my head. This is my head. Or maybe my heart. I don't know. Anyway, Bulldogs by 3 points over GWS. I think that will be an absolute cracking game. We've got Adelaide beating Hawthorn by 15 points. Another game that I think will be a really good one throughout the night, but I think Adelaide are just playing too good a football and will just get over the line when it matters most. Demons should be too strong for the Eagles. We got them by 37 points. Gold Coast should be way too strong for Richmond. I've got them by 60. Sydney to be too strong for an undermanned Essendon by 45 points. I think Collingwood Brisbane goes right down to the wire. I've got Collingwood by 5. St Kilda should be too strong for North Melbourne, but do not write North Melbourne off. Got the Saints by 13. Cats by 52 points over Port Adelaide. They should be way too strong there. And Fremantle should be way too strong for Carlton. I've got them by 38 points just because I don't think Fremantle are a team that kicks high scores too often. We're 119 out of 170 for the season. Hopefully we can go 9 of 9 this week. Let me know if any of your tips differ from mine. Don't forget to do all the following, all the liking, all the sharing. Let your friends know about us. This is All Aussie Rules Football Podcast. We'll be back on Monday with the next episode, which will be our Round 21 review episode. We'll go through all the winners, all the losers, all the best players, everything you need to know from the weekend of football. I'm Jay, and I'll catch you on the next one.